Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen Waitress threw away my food when I wasn't looking, so I left her no tip. After that, am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that if he wants me to dress a certain way, he needs to pay for my clothes and hair and nails and time? And after that, I gave away my son's new bike after the prank he pulled on a girl he was friends with. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get a tip. Can't leave me a tip when you don't have any money, Reddit boy. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen Waitress threw away my food when I wasn't looking, so I left her no tip. My girlfriend and I recently went out for dinner. It took them a while to seat us as they were short-staffed. We ordered an appetizer to split as well as a meal each. I noticed that they were really trying to rush us along, bringing out our meals at the same time as the appetizer. The server kept grabbing things off the table, asking, "All finished with this?" and beginning to walk away with it in her hand before I stopped her and told her that we weren't finished. After the third time, first the bread, then my half-filled beer, and then the appetizer, I had enough. I understand you have a job to do. Please do not touch anything in front of me until it's cleared and off to the side. Stop interrupting our meal. Please go away, I said very sternly. A friend of mine came in and was seated at a table nearby. I turned around to greet him and engaged in chit-chat for about 2 minutes. When I turned around, my meal, which I had barely touched, was gone. My girlfriend hadn't even noticed it gone missing. I called the waitress over, who handed me the check and asked, "Will there be anything else?" I told her my meal had disappeared. She blankly replied, "Oh, I thought you were done." I said, "No, I'm still eating. Go get my dinner and bring it back here." She replied, It got thrown out. Because you looked like you were done, so yeah." I told her to go get me her manager. She responded that he didn't have time to see me. I told her that he needed to make time because I was about to make a scene in 4 seconds. She left and a minute later came back and said that he was too busy. I told her to reprint the check without my meal on it. She refused, saying I had ordered it, I had to pay for it, and walked away. I let my girlfriend finish her meal, took the check, put a line through the cost of my meal, pulled cash out of my wallet to cover the appetizer, drinks, and my girlfriend's meal, wrote, "No tip. Your server was rude, incompetent, and threw out my dinner," and handed it to the cashier as one bundle as I walked out. My girlfriend thinks I went a bit overboard and that I should have at least tipped for the other employees involved. My mother, a retired waitress, is furious that I took it upon myself to alter a check and leave without paying for food I ordered. She thinks it was an honest mistake and I need to be more understanding. I'm usually on the side of the servers, but this seems a bit much. Who takes someone's food without even asking if they want to box it up, especially if there was a lot left over? Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Agree that I am almost always on the side of the server, 99.9% of the time. I'm a firm believer that we all have bad days at work and make mistakes, and we all still get paid for those days, and servers should too. But not in this case. I also don't understand why the server would take the food without asking to box it up, or clearly asking if you're done. But even if this was the case, once the server realized she had thrown away the food that the person still planned on eating, a replacement should have been offered. And yes, she might have gotten in trouble for that, but that's a consequence of her own mistakes. Not the jerk. What's the manager there for then? Sounds like you made it very clear not to remove plates. Waitstaff doing that afterwards is deliberate. Handing you the bill and saying, "Will there be anything else?" is kind of hostile too. Sounds like she had an issue with you from the get-go. Weird way to treat a customer. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the waitress? Please let us know. I'd be calling corporate if I were you. I've got a lot of experience doing that sort of thing. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that if he wants me to dress a certain way, he needs to pay for my clothes and hair and nails and time? I'm a woman in a career field which really doesn't care about appearances. My boyfriend is in a job where looks matter more, investment banking. He wears suits and has to present himself as more wealthy to look good at work. My boyfriend wanted me to come to some work events, dinners, or happy hours. But he said that it was something we'd need to dress up for. I offered to wear some nice dresses I have, and he said that it was more than that. His coworkers' wives and girlfriends wore designer and had professionally done hair and nails, and that it really was just what was needed to succeed in his workplace, so he considered it a professional expense. I said that made sense for himself, but I'm not responsible for his professional expenses. He agreed to pay for the clothes and salon appointments, and I also asked him to compensate me for my time getting presentable for those events. Additionally, if he wanted me to act a certain way during these events, which was different than my usual behavior at a social event, it should be treated like work. I'd expect to be paid for my time. He thought that was unfair, saying that it was weird to charge my boyfriend to attend an event with him. I said that if I'm not attending as myself, but instead presenting an image for business development purposes, that's not socializing, that's labor. He agreed to that in the end, and we came up with a list of things I'd need to attend an event with him. Designer dress, designer heels, jewelry, hair done, nails done, makeup done, handbag. He picked out the dress, heels, and bag, and he asked me to find salons to have my hair, nails, and makeup done. When I told him how much the cosmetics appointments and the time I spent on them cost, he was upset it was $700. And adding that to the clothes he bought and the time we'd be at the event, it was coming close to almost $2,000. We went and I played the part. It was uneventful. Nobody paid me much attention. Felt like a bit of a waste, but whatevs. But afterwards, when I mentioned that I wanted to borrow his card to make an appointment to get the nails removed, since I needed them filed down by a professional before work, he got frustrated with me, saying that I was milking him for money and I was only with him for money. I told him that I make the same as he does. He got upset and said that most girls know how to dress themselves and do their own makeup nice, and I got so frustrated I said sarcastically, "Go date most girls then. I'm sure most girls would love being treated like a human dress-up doll." He got really mad about that, and I feel frustrated too. Like he expects me to do crap unpaid for his work. Like I would never ask him to do crap for my job, let alone do my job unpaid. Am I the jerk for wanting to be paid if my labor was going towards my boyfriend's career? Edit, because there are a lot of questions about why I thought it was justified to ask for compensation for my time. 1. The hair and makeup and nails and tailoring appointments took about 10 hours. I had to take a full day off work, and since I am a consultant who bills hourly, I was losing a day's wages to perform tasks my boyfriend wanted to benefit his career. If I ever asked my boyfriend to lose wages at his job to perform tasks for my job, I'd think it would be fair to pay him for his work too. 2. I'm always happy to attend social events and be polite, friendly, and talk to people and get to know them, for free. But this wasn't what he was asking of me. He wanted me to act, to not speak of my actual hobbies or career, and to give the impression that I am a stay-at-home partner, to claim to ski. I have no idea how to ski. To only order classy drinks and none of the drinks I actually drink. That doesn't strike me as going to an event as a partner. That strikes me as going to an event as an actress or a performer, which is a whole job. Edit 2. I also find it very strange how feminine labor is undervalued. He said that he needed me to do something for him to support his career because his bosses expected of me. If this was any other kind of work, it would be absurd to do it unpaid. Like if he said, "Hey, my boss needs a truck loaded," and everyone knows that's what the girlfriends do. "Can you come by and load the truck? Also, you'll need to bring your own forklift." Absurd. If he asked me, "Hey, my boss heard you're an engineering consultant and wants you to evaluate this software architecture, and he expects it for free because that's what girlfriends are for," that's absurd. I'd be sending my rates. So why is it acceptable to say, "Hey, my workplace expects me to bring a woman to play a very specific role, and you will need to do 10 hours of preparation tasks for free for the benefit of my career, and you should cover the cost of parts and labor"? I wish that was considered equally absurd, but it's almost like women's work in hospitality is an undervalued form of labor. Info. What keeps you together? I just read 2 people who are completely incompatible. Exactly. Not the jerk. He needs to find himself a living doll or robot or something because he clearly needs one in order to advance at work. Or just someone who wants to live like that. I'm sure there are plenty of people who would. He just hasn't chosen to be with a woman who does enjoy those things. Yeah, I love dressing up and getting my hair and nails done. I work in an office that allows jeans, and yet I wear almost exclusively dresses. Dating a guy like this would be wonderful for me, and I'd have a ton of fun, even if the events themselves were boring just because I got to dress up. But not everyone is like that. Okay, but it's not about the dressing up, which I also enjoy and don't get the opportunity to do a lot, really. It's about the asking her to lie about her hobbies, keep her demeanor more docile, and pretend she doesn't work. I'd have a hard time with that aspect. OP. He's not like this outside of work. He honestly puts on a whole different personality when he has to go to work. which up until now I really wasn't exposed to because we kept our professional lives separate. Thing is, he seems happy to have a work persona that is entirely different than his real personality. I'm not. My coworkers get the same me as my friends, minus a bit of the excessive language and gossip. My coworkers know I'm basically a teenage dirtbag in a 28-year-old woman's body, and I still get respect because I'm kind and competent. And I like working in an environment where I can show up with pink hair that I dyed in the bathroom the night before, and all people will say is, "Cool hair. I love how you always have something new and unique." I wasn't aware of how restrictive his company's workplace culture was and how he has a whole different persona he has to put on and take off every day. Not the jerk. You're my hero for putting an appropriately high value on your time. Yeah, I'm with her 100%. In addition, I find it kind of messed up that the boyfriend got all upset and said she's using him for money. Dude, she gave you the option of herself, dressed up in a nice outfit she already owns. He's the one who insisted on all the expensive extra crap. This was your idea, homie. Not the jerk, and I like your style, OP. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. Sometimes our careers and lives make us incompatible with others. I know I wouldn't want to have to pretend to be someone I'm not, but I also sure as heck wouldn't be paying Reddit boy to go to a party with me. Who would even invite you to a party, Karen? You know you don't have any friends. Stop it, Reddit boy. Just stop it. I gave away my son's new bike after the prank he pulled on a girl he was friends with. So recently I found out my son Jacob, who's 15, pulled an incredibly cruel prank on one of the girls I'll call Ashley that's in his friend group. I know this girl. She's been to our house and even attended Jacob's birthday party a month ago. She seemed incredibly sweet, if not a bit shy. So when my oldest son, Mark, who's 17, came to me and told me that Jacob had asked Ashley out on a date as a prank, I was stunned. I, of course, asked how he could know this, hoping as any mother would that it wasn't true. But Mark showed me the family tablet we all use, but mostly my sons do, and it seems Jacob forgot to log out of his chatting app, Discord. I read the long series of messages between Jacob and his friends as they mocked Ashley all through this heartless prank. I was speechless, and that's not even getting into how he was talking, like he was some gangsta, and not even a 15-year-old living in a gated community. At first, I couldn't figure out what to do or how to proceed. I'll admit that I never once imagined either of my boys would be the type of person to do something like this, but there was no way in heck I was letting this go. So after a day of thought, I decided what was going to happen. First things first, he was grounded. For how long, I'm not sure. Secondly, I'd gotten Jacob a bike for his birthday, but it hadn't arrived until the day previous, and I'd planned to give it to him when my parents came to visit since they'd been unable to make his party. But instead of that, I showed him I knew about the prank, and then told him he was grounded. Then I made him carry the new bike out of my bedroom closet and to the car before driving it to Ashley's house, him crying the whole way. I'd called her parents earlier and explained everything, and so once we got there, I had him cart it to their front porch and ring the doorbell. Then in front of me, Ashley, her parents, and God, I had him give a sincere apology and gift her the bike. Even I apologized to her, saying I didn't raise my boys this way, and what he did was unforgivable. I also called the parents of the other boys who were a part of this little stunt, and they all seemed rightfully horrified by their son's involvement. I felt I'd handled this all as best I could, and my friends agreed. Though once my parents found out that I'd made Jacob give his birthday gift away, they said that I did go too far. I still feel like what I did was right, but having my parents more or less dogpile on me like this actually made me wonder if how I handled it was too extreme. Am I the jerk here? Not the jerk. You did the right thing. If there hadn't been any consequences that hit where it hurt, he may not have learned how unacceptable that behavior is. That cruelty is sadly common in kids around that age, but this is the absolute right step towards him becoming a good man. OP. I'm sad to say I know how cruel boys can be. Not personally, but back when I was in high school, I witnessed something similar to this happen to the weird girl, and it ended very poorly for her. As horrible as it is, I would tell that story to him. He needs to know that this is more than silly fun and can scar someone for life or worse. Not the jerk, you did good. Yes, a lot of teenagers are just plain dumb sometimes. I bet he didn't even think how this would feel if it were done to him. As a female that had this prank pulled on them in high school, I want to say thank you for standing up and for doing what's right. When it was done to me, it took a huge toll on me, and I didn't trust guys for a long time when I was asked out out of fear that it was another prank. I hate to say this, but this most likely wasn't a one-off situation, and you might want to look into how your son treats other kids in school as well. I don't want to say he's bullying on other kids, but if he has no issue pulling something like this with his friends, what else is he doing? Not the jerk. I would have done the same thing. What he did wasn't okay. That can damage someone's self-confidence. He can handle losing a gift. He should feel awful for what he's done. Your parents are just grandparents thinking. They aren't seeing the big picture. If he keeps going down that path, he will end up with a bad group of kids. Punish him however you want. Boys need to be raised to respect women and not to tear them down. Not the jerk. I still remember 10 plus years later when I was in middle school and one kid told me his friend loved me, and seeing how angry his friend got afterwards because liking me was such a gross thing. You 100% did the right thing. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her son? Please let us know. Trust me, OP. If your son uses Discord, this probably isn't even scratching the surface of the things he's done. Am I the jerk for not doing anything after discovering that my wife deleted my daughter's novel? I've been married to my wife, Hannah, who's 36, for 2 years. She and my daughter, Morgan, who's 16, don't have a daughter-mother relationship. To be completely transparent here, they both fight often and just don't get along. Morgan used to spend most of her time at her mom's, but now is staying with us for school. I remember Hannah telling me about a novel Morgan has been writing on her laptop. She admitted to sneaking and looking at it without Morgan's knowledge, but she praised her writing style and storytelling, so I thought that was a positive thing. Yesterday, I got back home and found Morgan and her mom yelling at Hannah. I asked what was happening, and Morgan told me that Hannah deleted her novel. Hannah said that Morgan created a character in the novel using her description and name and making her the villain. Not only that, but she wrote bad words about her. Morgan argued that it was just a character and Hannah had no business snooping on her laptop to begin with. Hannah broke down crying after my ex-wife threatened her. I just watched the three of them fight and did nothing, nor said a single word. I stepped out for a minute to get fresh air, and moments later, Hannah unloaded on me about how I should have defended her in the argument instead of acting so cowardly. Morgan and her mom also said that I should have done something when Hannah decided to snoop and then delete Morgan's months of work. It just became too much with the three of them berating me and yelling in my face. Morgan went home with her mom and she was crying and refused to speak to me, and Hannah checked into a hotel, also refusing to speak to me. The texts from both sides kept coming in, both telling me I should have done something and should have taken their side in the argument. I just had to stay out of this one. I was on my feet the entire work morning. Both mental and physical health are down the drain, and I'm tired of them fighting all the time, then blaming me for my actions or lack of. Both are expecting me to get involved and do something to fix this, but I haven't done anything yet. Am I the jerk for not getting involved? You're the jerk. Hannah should pay for the recovery services to get the novel back. This will run $1,500 to $3,000 and won't guarantee that it is successful. There is no question who the jerk is here, and it's both you and Hannah. The laptop should be powered off and not used until it is sent in for recovery to give it the best chance of succeeding. Also, OP, you should have shut Hannah down the moment she admitted to snooping through Morgan's things. You should have told her to stop and told Morgan to add or change her password. You and Hannah are huge jerks. I see the next novel having two villains, one nasty snooping one and one cowardly one. He knew that his wife was snooping through his daughter's belongings, yet he did nothing. He knew his wife and daughter have hated each other for years, yet he talks about them fighting constantly as though it's natural. He knows he is both a father and a husband, yet he's been sitting on the side, stuck in neutral for some time. OP, no matter your mental state, you don't get to check out from being a parent. Your daughter didn't get a choice in who her parents would be, but it was your choice to bring her into this world. You're her father, her defender and protector. Yes, she's a young woman now, but inside there's still a child that wants her father to make her feel safe and loved. When you married Hannah, it became your responsibility to watch over her relationship with your daughter and to make sure your daughter was never mistreated. When your wife said she went through your daughter's laptop, that was your window to shut down a future blowout. You did nothing, and in choosing to do that, you failed your daughter. That was your moment to be her protector, but you chose to lay down your sword and shield, leaving her vulnerable to the wolf in sheep's clothing. Your refusal to be a better husband and father helped create this massively dysfunctional situation, and you're still sitting on the sidelines. Do you really think there won't be even more consequences this time? Your job is to step up and try to find a path through this. Time to get out of neutral, get into gear, and get moving now. Take away my company car? I'll just fly everywhere. First, this isn't the company I work for, but it's a company that services the same customers, and I interact quite often with their sales team. For a little backstory, this job is a sales job where you represent a manufacturer and travel around a territory calling on customers that sell your products. The territory is generally at least 2 states and averages 30,000 miles on the road per year, if not more. The company in question was recently acquired by a new ownership group that has a reputation for buying stagnant businesses, trimming down every possible expense they think is excessive, and selling it once it looks profitable, even though the company is barely functioning because of all the cuts. After the acquisition, the new ownership group decided that the sales reps' company cars were one of these excessive expenses. They were told to buy their own cars and they'd be given a monthly allowance to pay for the vehicle. There's several problems. They drove at least 30,000 miles a year, so no matter what kind of car they bought, the car would depreciate in value very quickly, and they would likely need to trade it in a few years before it was paid off. Also, if they wanted to use exactly what their allowance would allow for a car, they'd likely be buying a 10 to 15-year-old car, and it still wouldn't cover fuel and insurance. The sales reps were used to getting a new car every 2 to 3 years. It's important in this line of work to have a presentable car because it's often used to take our customers around the market. For example, my company has a very strict policy about keeping the vehicles clean and will pay to repair any cracks in the windshield or dents in the car immediately because we're a reflection of the company when meeting with our customers. It's just all around a situation where they're getting done over and would be spending their own money on something their old company used to cover, and it's essential to their job. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. This new company didn't have a policy on flights. There was no rule on how far the destination needed to be before they were allowed to book a flight. Also, they were allowed to rent a car if they flew to a destination. Finally, their company card approval system didn't have very good checks and balances because of the acquisition. Basically, all expenses were sent to an understaffed department. Some were laid off during the acquisition, so they'd approve all expenses as long as a receipt was provided. So now the sales reps are buying ridiculously expensive, super regional flights and just renting a car at the airport. One of the reps I sometimes bump into had just flown from Kansas City, Missouri to Wichita, Kansas, which is 2.5 to 3 hours away on the interstate. He then rented a car and drove back to Kansas City to make sales calls for 2 weeks. He ended up back in Wichita making sales calls the whole way and flew back to Kansas City to start the weekend. He'd been doing this every week for months. So was the rest of their sales force. He told me that his average daily travel expense was $50 more than the monthly allowance they gave him to buy a car. He told me that his average daily travel expense was $50 more than the monthly allowance they gave them to buy a car. Apparently, the new company just caught on towards the end of the year, and their year-end travel expenses for them are massive. Since the discovery, there's been multiple meetings, virtual town halls, and a ton of emails with new policies and procedures for taking flights and submitting expenses. The biggest win for them, though, is that at the beginning of this year, they all got company cars again. Sure, I can wait. I've been working as a delivery driver for a small parts company in the RV industry. Think courier van small parts. I have a lot of stops in a day, 20 to 30, which happens when you live in the RV capital of the world. So one day I'm headed to one of my favorite plants with a hot order of screws, something they need badly. Let's call it Plant 107. I like it because the receiver there is a super chill guy that takes care of me and makes sure I'm not waiting in line forever like other places. This particular day, he has been given orders by his boss, who plays the part of the antagonist in this story. So I pull up to the plant and see across the way that he is busy and will be a while, so I do what I normally do and just wait it out. Around 15 to 20 minutes go by and he's still working and I'm still sitting. In times past when this has happened, I can just hand load everything onto a cart and walk into the office for someone to sign paperwork, and I'll take the product to the correct location. This is where I encounter the jerk, the boss. The exchange went as follows. Me: how's it going? Was hoping someone could sign for these so I can drop them for you. I know it's a hot order. Boss: who are you with? Me: insert company name here. Boss dismissively: why are you in such a hurry? Me: not in a hurry, but I know you need these immediately, and the receiver is busy. I've been out there for about 15 minutes or so. Boss more sternly: Do you need me to go out and buy you a new watch? You've only been here 5 minutes, and I know because I pulled in around you. Me. Yes, you pulled around me about 10 minutes after I got here. Boss, even more sternly. Well, I'm the one in charge here, and I told the receiver to work on something else, so you're going to have to wait. Your package is not a top priority for us, so go back to your truck. Me, choking back the urge to go off on this lady. Sure, I can wait. So I go back out to the truck and pull forward ever so slightly so my side door is even with her window. Open it up and sit there staring at her. Another 20 minutes go by, and my boss calls asking why this place hasn't received their screws yet. Tell him what happened, and he says, "Stay there, I'll take care of it." Another 10 minutes go by, and suddenly she comes bursting out of the office screaming for the receiver on the radio, saying he shouldn't have left me waiting so long and that she is going to write him up for what happened. And then, in a what on earth move, she just gets in her car and leaves. I look at the receiver and make sure he knows that's BS, and I will vouch for him. We make fun of her for a minute and then split ways, in a transaction that should have taken 2 to 3 minutes tops. Several days go by, and I find out an owner of the company is my boss's golf buddy, and he called him directly. Well, crap rolls downhill, and she got in huge trouble. They demoted her, cut her pay, and suspended her for 2 weeks. I still deliver there often. Every time she sees me, I give her a big smile and a wave, and all she does is drop her head. Sure, I can wait. The camera was stolen? Okay, I'll file a police report. I do marketing for a general contractor in the US. Part of my job requires me to organize the installation of cameras on the job site, mainly for marketing purposes like time lapses and stuff like that. My boss lives near the site that I was setting up the cameras for and offered to drop off the camera on his way into work the next day. The next day, he texts me to confirm where he dropped it off and also notified the site superintendent, boss of the site. The super would take care of the actual installation, which involved drilling it into a post and plugging it in. Pretty simple stuff. Also important to the story, this super was retired a year ago and came back to work for us for unknown reasons, so you could say he is a little checked out of working at this point in his life. Fast forward to the day after my boss dropped it off. I called the super to confirm that he had installed it. He tells me that he never saw the camera on the site, and I told him to check where my boss said he dropped it off, which was under a trailer and covered by an extra sign. He still claims it is nowhere to be found, sent a picture of where my boss left it, and then suggests that it may have been stolen. I go to my boss and explain the situation, and we both agree that something doesn't seem quite right. We call him up to see what he says, and he's still sticking to his story that it was stolen, but sounds a little hesitant over the phone. My boss dropped it off around 7:30 a.m., and the super was on the job site around 8 a.m. Not exactly prime hours for theft and a very small window of when the site was unsupervised. Standard procedure for when something is stolen from the job site is to file a police report and all that jazz. I also called the camera provider to see if there was any way to GPS track the camera. Unfortunately, there was not, but the super doesn't need to know that. Me and my boss agree to craft up some beautiful BS in an email to see if anything happens. We said that we will follow standard procedure and file a police report for the camera. I also mentioned that I will be calling the camera provider to have them track the camera so we can get it back. The next morning, he calls me back and says that he found the camera in the woods on the edge of the job site and blamed one of the subcontractors for moving it. He probably lost it when he read the words GPS tracking and covered his tracks. I think he was either trying to sell the camera or just really didn't want to install it. Since then, the camera has been installed after bugging the same super for about a month. Nothing ever came of the suspected theft due to lack of evidence, and the super still works here. Classmate is mad I'm forcing her to eat ethnic food. Go eat a loaf of bread. This happened about a year ago now when I was in high school. My calculus class was very chill. About 20 kids who were all friendly with each other, a laid-back but enthusiastic teacher, and a light enough workload that we could afford to goof off in class but still learn and do well. At some point in the year, I got really into cooking. It's my stress reliever. My family couldn't possibly eat the amount of food I made, so I started bringing it into school and hosting Friday parties in my calc class, with my teacher's approval, of course. Now, I'm Vietnamese and live in a predominantly white town. This is only important because it's meant that most kids from my town only ate American or European foods and weren't used to eating other ethnic foods. Last year, around Lunar New Year, I wanted to bring in some Vietnamese foods to celebrate. It's a very important time of year for my family. I ended up making a bunch of bon de lon, a steamed layer cake, and a traditional Vietnamese dessert. Some of my friends from class found out I was going to bring in a traditional dish and brought in their own traditional dishes from their own cultures, whether they celebrated Lunar New Year or not. We had different Indian, Korean, Filipino, and Spanish desserts. It was great, and I was really excited that my friends wanted to celebrate with me. Apparently, there was an issue for one girl in my class. I would say bon de lon is an acquired taste, so when not a lot of people ate it, I wasn't offended. I knew not everybody would like it. There was a lot of other food anyways. During our lunch period, one of my friends, who wasn't in our class but knew I brought food in, overheard a girl from my class complaining about the food while on the lunch line. Apparently, she was saying really negative things about how I forced everyone to eat weird Chinese foods. Later that day, I texted her just saying I heard she didn't like the food and wanted to know why. I don't really care when people don't like the food. I make it for myself and bring it in when I have extra anyways. But her calling it weird Chinese food when she knows I'm Vietnamese didn't sit right with me. Well, she texted back that it was rude of me to bring in weird ethnic foods that nobody could have liked except for me, and said I should have known better since most of the class was white. I told her that I bring in food to share because I feel like it and that I don't have an obligation to cater to her tastes. If she has an issue with it, she literally does not have to eat it, and other people can bring in food too. So if she wanted to, she could bring in something more to her tastes. After that, she just told me that I shouldn't bring in ethnic and foreign foods and stick with American foods because we're in America. Excuse me? Like, how much you want to bet if I brought in jambalaya, which originated in Louisiana, she would call it a weird foreign food? Fine. She only wants to eat American foods, then she can eat American foods. The next week, I brought in a bunch of oliebollen, a Dutch donut, and started passing them out at the beginning of class. When I got to her desk, I pulled out a loaf of Wonder Bread and plopped it on her desk, saying, "Sorry, but these are Dutch, too ethnic. Here you go, all American cuisine." Later, she texted asking what the heck my problem was, so I told her that almost every single food I brought in this year was ethnic, and that it ticked me off that she had only had an issue when it wasn't European. She's entitled to not liking Asian foods, but if you're going to complain about it being ethnic, then you better have that same attitude when the ethnic food is white. And especially, don't call another person's culture weird. She didn't complain about the food again. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.